The mountains were silent that night, buried under a sheet of moonlit snow, when the world lost Captain Mira Dalton. For hours, search teams combed the Rockies, their lights carving through the dark skies like desperate prayers. But the skies gave nothing back. Her jet, gone. No debris. No fire trail. No beacon. Just silence so unnerving that even the wind seemed to hold its breath. This was not just another missing aircraft. Mira wasn't just another pilot. She was one of the best the Air Force had ever trained, someone who never made mistakes, someone whose instincts had saved lives more times than she could count. And now she had vanished without leaving even a fading whisper behind. The world began to move on, but her family didn't. Her father kept checking his phone every hour as if expecting her voice. Her younger brother still waited outside at sunset, imagining she might descend through clouds just to ruffle his hair again. Her mother prayed at the same corner of the same room every dawn and dusk. But the military had its own cold laws, and after 18 hours, long after the jet's fuel should have run dry, they quietly prepared the paperwork to declare her lost. They knew the math. They trusted physics. Jets don't survive without fuel. Pilots don't stay alive in snowstorms overnight. But what none of them knew was that Mira Dalton was out there, still fighting the storm that refused to kill her. Hours earlier, before the silence took over, Mira had flown one of the most routine sorties of her month. Clear skies. Stable winds. No turbulence. She even hummed under her breath, something she only did when she felt unusually at peace. But the Rockies had a habit of changing moods faster than any radar could track. Out of nowhere, a violent downdraft slammed into her jet with a force so brutal she felt the bones in her arms shake. Warning alarms screamed. Instruments flickered. The storm swallowed her like a beast pulling prey into its chest. She fought the controls with every ounce of training she had, but the jet kept dropping, 1,000 feet, then 2, then 3, until the clouds turned into the white glare of mountain snow. Mira managed to pull up just in time, scraping past a ridge by meters, but the storm had already won. It killed her communication systems, disabled navigation, and threw her off course so badly even she couldn't guess where she was. The world outside her canopy was a blur of white and darkness. She kept fighting, kept banking, kept climbing through the mess, but in the end, the jet succumbed to the storm's wrath. She remembered the impact only as a blinding explosion of sound, then the crushing quiet that followed. She awoke inside a nightmare. The wreckage was half buried in snow, smoke hissing from the torn metal. Her leg was pinned beneath part of the cockpit. Her hands were numb from cold. Her breath was a trembling fog. But she was alive. The survival instinct that had saved her in combat kicked in again, forcing her to remain calm even as her body screamed in pain. She tore off part of her parachute fabric, wrapped her bleeding leg, and dragged herself through the shattered metal until she stumbled onto open snow. The wind had quieted, but the silence carried its own threat. The Rockies were unforgiving, ancient, and merciless, and she had no working radio, no food, and no idea if anyone even had a clue where her jet had gone down. But giving up had never been part of Mira's DNA. She scanned the horizon, searching for anything, movement, smoke, shadows, life. Nothing. Just endless white stretching to infinity. She knew she couldn't stay at the crash site, the mountain would freeze her before sunrise. So she began to walk, slowly, painfully, dragging her injured leg through snow that reached her knees. Every step was a war. Hours passed. Daylight faded. Her body weakened. Her heartbeat slowed. But she kept going. Back at base, her disappearance shattered the people who knew her. Her squadron commander clenched his jaw every time someone mentioned her name. They had flown together for 6 years. He trusted her more than he trusted himself in the air. The idea that she had simply vanished felt like a betrayal from the sky itself. He pushed the search teams harder than regulations allowed. Some said he was losing perspective. Others said he was refusing to accept the truth. But deep down, he wasn't chasing logic, he was chasing hope. As night fell over the mountains, Myra's strength began slipping away. The temperature dropped so low that even her breath burned like ice inside her lungs. Her vision blurred. Her steps became uneven. She stumbled, collapsed, and tasted the bitterness of snow on her lips. She lay there, unable to rise again, staring at the faint glow of the moon through a thin veil of clouds. She whispered an apology to her family. She whispered that she tried. She whispered that she wasn't ready to die. But the world has strange ways of bending destiny. As Mira lay motionless, frost crawling over her gloves, a faint sound reached her ears, a rhythmic, low hum. A memory jolted through her mind. The emergency transmitter. Her last lifeline. She realized the crash's impact might have damaged it but not destroyed it. The transmitter had a manual backup. She crawled, dragging herself over frozen earth, searching the snow with her ungloved hands even as frostbite chewed at her skin. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Time no longer meant anything. But then her hand brushed against metal. The emergency locator beacon. It was dented, frozen, nearly dead. But not dead enough. With the last strength left in her trembling fingers, she flipped the manual switch. In that moment, a faint, barely detectable signal pulsed through the mountains. Back at the base, 18 hours after Myra's jet fuel should have long run out, long after everyone except her family had quietly given up hope, a tiny blip appeared on the rescue team screens. Too faint. Too unstable. Almost impossible to track. But it was there. A single heartbeat of a signal where silence had lived for nearly a day. The commander froze. Then he whispered, "That's her." No one questioned. No one hesitated. Helicopters were launched within minutes. The snowstorm had eased, as if the mountains themselves had paused to let them through. They followed the faint signal, tracing it across ridges, valleys, and frozen cliffs, each minute feeling like it stretched a lifetime. Mira heard them before she saw them. The distant thunder of rotors. She forced herself to rise, but her body refused. She tried to shout, but her voice was too weak. So she did the only thing she could, she raised her arm toward the sky, hoping, praying, begging to be seen. Her hand trembled violently. The world spun in and out of focus. And then a searchlight cut through the darkness and landed directly on her. The moment she was lifted from the snow, half-conscious, barely breathing, the commander gripped her hand so tightly it hurt. But she welcomed the pain. It meant she was alive. Her rescue became a miracle whispered across bases, newsrooms, and households. How had she survived 18 hours in the freezing Rockies? How had she kept moving with a shattered leg? How had a tiny, damaged transmitter sent a signal at precisely the moment she was about to fade away? Some called it luck. Some called it fate. Mira called it a promise she had made to herself long before she ever stepped into a cockpit. A promise to never stop fighting. And for the rest of her life, every time someone asked her what kept her alive in those mountains, she gave the same answer. Hope. Even in the darkest hours, hope is louder than fear. As she recovered in the hospital, her family stayed by her bedside, holding her hands, brushing her hair, whispering prayers of gratitude. Her younger brother refused to let go of her arm, as if afraid she might disappear again. Her mother's tears soaked the sheets. Her father thanked every force he believed in. And her commander stood by the door, pretending he wasn't wiping his eyes. Mira survived because she refused to surrender. Because she believed that somewhere, someone was still searching for her. Because she trusted that life had more chapters to give her. And in those mountains, heartbroken, frozen, and alone, hope kept breathing inside her long after science said she should have been gone. And that is what makes her story unforgettable.